There you are.
There I am.
Good morning. Where's Annie? I just see a face.
Yeah, she's here. She's coming.
Oh, she slipped. Slipped away.
We'll be back. Here she is.
Yay.
Yay.
Hi, Annie.
All right. Hi. Our little trio here.
Yeah, this may give us the time to talk about the little trio. Robert and I have had some conversation, but it may be that we want to keep this little trio as opposed to opening it up to other people or doing a separate thing that includes us and other people too.
More is better,
Well, yes, but the
which means
more is better if we can herd them into the deep dive that we're familiar with.
we can.
And that will probably take all of us, especially with with people who have really strong habits.
Same, unpack that a little bit more.
Well,
Well, what you're asking is the three of us and integrated with a couple more, 2, 3 more.
yeah, the concern is we really value this time and it's really useful for us because we go deep and we don't proselytize. I mean, we surf on different areas of interest and that kind of thing, but it's all with the idea of trying to get down deeper into the understanding of it. And that's not something that a lot of people are used to.
That's right.
So how to, I guess the decision for us would be, in my mind, if this time is really valuable, do we want to keep it as a time just for us and then do something else with other people and train them into this? It's like if we bring other people into this, then we won't have this deep dive for a bit because other people just aren't going to go there for a while. They don't understand it. They have to, and it will probably take the three of us hurting them gently in our own ways to get them there. But that means that we won't have the time that we treasure. So just a joint decision about what we want to do, what will serve us and the greater whole at the same time.
Well, I'm very clear and know what I want to say, but I'd like to hear from Robert first.
Yeah. The way I look at it, what we're generating together is the outcome of something that we're very good at together.
Right.
And I feel that as it is released into the general consciousness of humankind, it's valuable. And it's of general use to any who care, who are on the same wavelength, even though they're not actually communicating with us at this time. And with that in mind, I believe that if we keep going the way we are and keep generating this, others will come who are absolutely ready to jump right in. It's like we're emitting a signal.
Yeah.
And I'm for letting the signal draw.
Okay.
Rather than advertising, rather than reaching out in the usual, cultural way. So I don't know if that's as clear as I can make it, but it begins to clothe what I'm thinking.
I like it. Yes. Let the vibration draw on. Let's keep deep diving. Let's keep getting that dive deeper and deeper and more coherent, more and more resonant till it draws.
And in the meantime, I mean, can't speak for the two of you, although from observing you, it seems like what I'm about to say is true. But I have learned so much. You know, I had a certain worldview, and it's been expanded immensely by talking to the two of you in this intimate and deep way that we have been. It's been very useful. You know, because I do lots of other things. Each of you do lots of other things, and we take that out with us. So, you know, I see this as something to, you know, this particular deep dive, as Catherine was saying, is something that's valuable. And it's not that protected at all, you know, by all means. No, I mean, perfectly willing to make it, you know, open, but I'm thinking of, you know, drawing a hedge around it. People who want to get through will definitely get through. We won't be able to keep them out. That's the way I look at it.
Well, and it kind of is like that because it is open. It's on the network. Anybody can join. There's no,
Right.
you know, and so everybody has that opportunity. It is also part of the welcome package. So people are encouraged to do that when they join. They get a list, and part of that list says join the deep dive, so that they're encouraged to come here. And like Kurt, who came and is not here this week, you know, there are people who will come in and sample and decide whether or not it's something they want to spend their time on. And I think that's fine too. I just want to make sure because when that happens, then our experience is different.
Yeah.
And so what we came for may not happen. And I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that that's fine.
Yeah, in a way, I apologize for last week, you know, just not being available. Because it would have been different if I'd had a good connection. And
yeah, yeah, that's true. But,
not that it might have made any difference, but I'm just saying it would have been different.
Yeah. That's
If I'd thought more clearly.
We have a vibration. Our group
Absolutely.
has a vibration. It has a boundary. It has a natural boundary. And the gentleman who was on last week, I made sure that boundary was kept, and that's probably why he didn't come back.
Well, and that's I think a good thing. But the other side of that is it can feel like it's cliquish,
right,
to the new people.
Yeah,
that we have such a tie that they can't get in, and so that's
because we haven't defined, we haven't established the boundary, we haven't defined the boundary on the website, so people know it's not just something to come into. It is something to it's a venture to come in with us, because we are on we venture. We are on an adventure, and it's into life, and it's into who we are, and it's into how it all works, and the beauty and synthesis of everything. And most people don't come in that deep. So if you could express that, courageous people like either one of us, any one of us, would be attractive. Someone who is not as matured in this way of interacting would kind of think about it a little bit and see if they're ready for that.
Yeah. Well, and they can all watch, so everybody has some sense of what goes on, because we got a ton of videos out there. It's not like it's hidden.
But maybe they didn't. Maybe the gentleman last week did not watch first before.
I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he did. Yeah.
So it's there to watch, but I would probably say something on the website that it is, we'd have to think about how to put that. I mean, it's open to anybody
It is open.
who 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 is willing to subject themselves to whatever happens once they enter.
Well, you have to have an open mind. You have to be curious and willing to explore your ideas, because if something happens or is discussed or is brought forth that's really different than what you're expecting or used to, that can be challenging, you know. And that's the point of this, actually, is to for all of us, is to see where we have those spots that maybe aren't as deeply explored, or are too tightly held, or are slightly out of sync, so that we can align them. I mean, that's really what we do. And
Right.
so people have to have the curiosity and the openness to see what they're going to get out of it, how they're going to be, how new things will appear in their mind based on the way we work with each other and think about things and ask questions and that kind of stuff. But I'm also really concerned from their viewpoint that they do feel welcome and that they don't feel excluded, because the chemistry that we have is almost excluding just by itself, because it works for us, and new people are not part of that, so they can feel sort of on the outside. And to some extent that's to be expected, but I don't want people to feel that there's no way in, and that they, so that's something that we need to manage, I think, to be really.
If we were an aquatic group at the edge of an ocean, we would not say, and we were about to take a deep dive, we wouldn't say, come on with us. We're an aquatic group that know what we mean when we say we're going to take a deep dive. So there does have to be some, I mean, it's not just welcome to all. It's like an invitation to something specific. And that person has the chance then, I love your cup, has the chance then to decide if they're up for that venture or not.
Well, I would put it, I love your image, and I would put it, or my answer to it would be slightly different. There are already denizens of the deep, people who are quite comfortable at those depths.
Yeah.
And if one of such people joined us, there would be no shyness.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd be right at home, because we're at home, with what we're working with, what we're doing. And that's what I mean. People will come if it's needed, if
if it works for them.
Yeah, if it works for them, and if it's needed by us, or what we're doing, if that requires a greater expansion.
Yeah.
Because
sorry. All I'm saying is, let them know the difference. Let them know the difference between come join a group of dialogue and this is a deep dive.
Right. That's
say what the deep dive is, and we haven't yet, but we know what it is. Because we are adventurers, and we have a desire and a need for being in this kind of adventuresome enmeshment. Adventuresome.
I'd like to try to draw those two words. That would be really
There you go. Adventuresome enmeshment.
Let me show you something. I think I drew something like that. Right here.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Wow.
Oh, really nice, Robert.
And it's not so much the accuracy I'm after, it's just the mood,
Yeah.
the majesty of that cloud. And this is from a photo, but I'm very pleased with this painting because it goes
Yeah.
beyond the photo.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So,
Yeah.
so
Suddenly makes it worth doing.
if photo that somebody took of a real thing in the
Yeah,
ocean.
yeah, that I took. And in fact, I took it because I was struck by it and thought this would be a nice thing to paint.
Love it.
But and a friend of mine sent me one from her trip to Minnesota, Lake Superior,
Yeah.
some section, and that's the same way. And I'm deciding that's what I want to paint from now on. Those sorts of captured moments of enmeshment. And what's that word? I can't even think of it correctly. Enmeshment.
Enmeshment adventure, yes.
Enmesh, I think it's ENMESH.
Enmeshment. I don't know. Anyway, that is a real thing in terms of attention.
Well, what has almost brought me to tears with your photo that you just shared and the painting you made from that picture, that image, that occurrence at the ocean is a powerful expression of the deep dive that we do. That would communicate, if that were posted on the invitation to come, that would communicate to people, oh my God, I'm not used to this. I think I'd like to tap my toes into this. It would tap they know that they don't.
The intensity. It shows the intensity.
It's intense, and that image would say it if you put the image by something that you posted about deep dive.
Well, I'm actually thinking of maybe I'll cut and paste some of what we've said.
Mm-hmm.
Great, because
yeah,
open to people who are as adventuresome and honest and probing and self-revealing as us, and not trying to do a mental thing or trying to do this is a place from anyway, you know.
Yeah,
but I think that's the key, the being honest and open to the probing that we do is, I'm not even liking that word because it sounds so invasive, but it's exploring deeply all aspects of ourselves as well as our thoughts and that kind of stuff. And so there's a vulnerability that we have with each other.
And we're seasoned. Each one of us is seasoned.
Yeah.
I love that word because it says what words can't say.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to invite somebody who just, well, I don't, anyway, we've said
it's not a place to advertise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to distinguish this in terms of promotional words, but I'm kind of I'm beginning to understand that I really do not have to become a repository for all the knowledge that I can possibly cram into a particular amount of brain cells, because they're apparently, because one of the reasons I really treasure our time together is that we go way beyond my cramming. And I trust that it's gone way beyond your cramming, Catherine, and yours, Ani. You know, we're going into totally different territory. We haven't crammed our mind, but it comes forth when this conjunction of a people of specific consciousnesses gets together. it draws forth something totally emergent.
It does. It opens the boundary. It opens our boundary to
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's what's valuable. And it's worth doing. It's pleasurable for me, as an
Yeah.
individual, but I think it's valuable just for the greater good, or however you want to put it. It leads us, to go on about our respective specific,
Yeah. And
whether it's working on your explorations, Catherine, into the biologic imperative, Ani, your poetry, or me, the painting. I mean, just to name a few, that's where it goes outward immediately.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely valuable. And so I wouldn't want to just sort of, I feel it would diminish it if suddenly we were trying to get a lot of people in and each session would be changed accordingly. There are plenty of places where we're already doing that with other people. So we don't need to add another one.
Well, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because it is open on the network. I'm going to be really driving to get people here to do the regenerative leadership programs and to understand what that is, and to start including it in their lives, in the way they hold themselves and the kinds of things they do. And I think actually that those who take that challenge will benefit greatly from thinking in this way and working in this way with other people. But there will be people who have to come through that don't fit at some point, just to taste and see if that's, where they are and all of that. So I just want to make sure we're okay with that process, or if we want another way of that I should handle this. I'm open to that too. If we wanted invitation only, that's a possibility too, that I could invite people who go through the classes that I feel are ready for this. That's another thing we can do.
when are you starting that, and how are you presenting it?
Well, the classes, the first webinar starts this afternoon, so I'll be doing 4 of them this month. And then I'm hoping that out of that, there will be enough people to do a class in October. If not, I will do more webinars in October. And then I plan to actually repeat that sequence of webinars and classes until the fall of next year. And out of that, have enough people who really want to go deeper and really train in what that looks like and how to work and how to express these ideas in their own area of interest and work. So, and there'll be a project attached to that.
What's your vision? What is your heart moving toward?
To get people to understand how important it is to turn to the earth and learn from the earth now in everything they're doing, and giving them the context to be able to assess whether that's what they're doing, or are they still caught in the old world.
I know for me, the reason that I fit here is because I know I'm nature. I
Mhm.
know I'm earth. I know I'm earthen. I'm elemental.
Yeah.
I'm part of life and everything that is. So that would be a prerequisite for this.
It can't be for the deep dive maybe, but it can't be a prerequisite for the whole thing, because it's getting people to that state. Yeah.
Right. So people who come to you that you would refer would be around the fact, do they know they're elementally earth, that they're nature themselves?
Or are they really open to experiencing that?
Yeah.
Being quiet in the meantime to learn. Right, if they,
Yeah, well, and I mean, we talk a lot about being authentic, and there was sort of a surge of that at one point in the culture where everybody wanted to be authentic and natural and all of that. But we don't really have many places to be authentic, and it takes time to sift down into yourself, to really touch the who you are, and then to do that in an active way where you're engaging with others is really difficult. I mean, this is why people sat around fires for thousands of years and talked, because that's the way you seat into yourself with others, and then you can bring that forward. And there's such a gift in that. I mean, it gives you a chance to see who people really are, to really appreciate them for the gift they are, and to begin to recognize your own gifts and have some confidence in that. And you can only do that in a group, really. It's hard to do that by yourself. You really need others and that experience. And I think that's what we offer, but it's unique in this time and place. People are not used to that kind. They yearn for it. I do think there's a huge hunger for it. I mean, the gentleman that was here before was, I could be just magical in that space, and incredibly powerful. But we're so used to putting the public face out there, to kind of fit in and to do all the things that we do in our society to get people to do all that kind of doing stuff that's not really from here. And so it just takes so much courage to be able to sit here patiently and allow yourself to come forward instead of grabbing the first thing off the shelf and throwing it out. And we're so used to that, so it's just a different space.
when we started this group, at our beginning, and I would watch the videos at the beginning, I noticed my ego sometimes popping up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, good. I mean, the idea, I mean, you have to notice that, but I noticed it, but I was also aware of that being subsumed by things Robert would say or things you would say. And my ego stopped popping up like it did at first. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
and experienced it being subsumed by something that came from each of your essences.
Yeah, we don't get caught in ego, even when it shows up. We dig deeper and pull out the other part of us.
Certainly, it isn't a matter of the ego not being
Yeah.
there. In my case, I mean, it's there. It's just usually that's a flag that says patience.
Yes.
Wait and listen a little bit longer.
Oh,
Yes, that's my point. It becomes a wait and see, and not being. You have to worry about it because it's going to disappear, but you don't get caught in it to address it. You just let it go and then wait for the real stuff to come through. Yeah, and that's part of the practice, frankly.
Yeah,
because we don't get triggered by each other's egos. We just let it flow.
and I think that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying when I use the word seasoned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I would look for if I was inviting somebody, is that kind of thing. But I will have to say that the teacher in me will also bring in people for whom that would be a great lesson.
Mhm.
because they need to see it in action in order to be able to do that. But it's disconcerting a bit also, because you know, they still have to see it. You can't make them see it.
I noticed myself being rather directive toward the gentleman that you invited into us, and I felt very comfortable being that way to help
Mhm.
him here to the resonant group that we are with Essence as.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he would get that and be very resonant. But I think, to your point, there needs to be an introduction so that people are prepared for that, because he had no idea what he was stepping into. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, you can take a horse to water and you can't make him drink, so we can give them videos, which we have. But I can do short, you know, a short little video and hope people will look at that.
I've got an image in my head of my hand on their head, pushing them into my
Drink, take that.
seems to be my style.
And I'm like, look, there it is. Go get it.
Well, there's also a patience angle.
Yeah.
Another group that I started attending just because I really liked the guy who led it. And it's kind of a deep dive, but it's so different from ours. It's almost amazing. One of the men in it is lives in Frankfurt, and he very rarely opens up his screen, you know, his video, but he's there and he listens. And he speaks about galactic wars and, you know, the overlords and, you know, the various battles that are going on. And I just couldn't get it. I mean, I was there, you know, for some others, but, you know, why is he there? And I think the turning point occurred when I was really having trouble with my legs. And I knew he had talked about doing global you know, what I call attunement, but, you know, radiation, healing radiation into the, and he led me, in our group, he just suddenly led me through a process of healing. And it was so deep and so convincing that he just captured my heart, you know. I don't care what he says now. I do my best to understand it, but I'm not put off by it anymore. Because if that got him to the point where he could share the depth of his soul as he did in that healing, and verbally, he was leading me through it. There was such love. And I mean, that was just an explosion in my judgmental part of my brain. It'll never be the same. I mean, so I guess I just want to add that you know, if someone's joining us and we all kind of sense that he or she needs to be there, then patience is of the essence. It does come through. There are some amazing people out there, and they've gotten there in ways that are unfathomable to me.
Yeah. And I think that the man who was here last time is one of those, frankly. I really do. I think
I think I gather that. Yeah.
It would just I do think that it might really be a huge transformation for him, actually.
I'm open.
Yeah. I mean, he's been very successful with what he's done, which is, you know, the double-edged sword. But into the new space, he's got to be different. And yeah. And
well, that's one of the reasons I'm really sorry that I had such a poor connection, because I just could not really,
Right.
there was
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
that would, and then that totally agitated me because, I was thinking, what's getting through, are my
Right.
words even coming through? What do I do?
Yeah.
Um,
Right. He didn't have much of a chance to really pick up on the resonance and seasoning that we have because of in and out of you.
yeah, so
Well, he'll be around, so he may come back. We'll see.
you'd
I
be
mean,
very
I'm doing other things with him occasionally, so yeah, I've known him for a long time, so
I,
he
I,
may show up.
you- they do need an orientation, some words that they can or have some orientation to what this is.
So
that
what would we say? How, because that would be something that we would do at the beginning of a meeting when there's other people here.
deep dive of an established group of resonant seekers.
Well, and maybe talking a little bit about the fact that we are established.
Yeah.
So so it could feel like it's hard to join us, but we're open to that.
And I don't particularly like the word seeker. I don't feel like I'm seeking anymore. I'm exploring. There's a difference.
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to become something.
Right.
I'm exploring and wonder of some amazing, through two other amazing human beings, but we're sharing in equal parts, this exploration of the world. And that's not seeking in the sense that I know the word.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we are. It's a deep dive. What the hell is at the bottom of this deep depth? Something out of which everything is coming.
So maybe I'll noodle around something and send it by you guys to
Sure.
add whatever, and see if we can't come up with something, because I think that would be helpful. I really do. I think it would help people acclimate better instead of just feeling like they could just jump in, and just frames our expectations in a different way, which is, I think, part of the journey.
Well,
Yeah.
what comes to me right now is a 5-person exploration to stabilize for a little while before we have it grow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think we need to,
That would be good. Yeah.
needs to be incremental.
Yeah.
I know I'm not equipped to handle 13, 15 different people.
No, well, and then it doesn't become, you don't have space to do that. So if that's another thing to think about. Where I was going with that is, if to do small spaces to break people up, that we would go back and forth between small spaces and big spaces.
Yeah.
Because there's something about the intimacy of 2 or 3 that allows you to be comfortable in the kinds of non-egoic explorations that is harder in a larger group, where you feel you have to create your space in order to talk.
Well, and in a larger group, it's imperative that people do not go off. If you're going to tell a story, I love stories, but it can be carefully weeded out so that you're telling the essences and not going on for 5 minutes.
Right.
I mean, that's not even really that helpful in a small group, but in a large group, it's deadly.
Yeah.
One person goes for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and there goes the conversation.
Yeah, and a lot of it's rambling, not really story either. Yeah.
Well, that's my That's my apparent, take on it, but
Yeah.
because essences are wonderful. I mean, it's like, the elixir of life.
Yeah.
I realize I'm like a warrior in situations like that where people are running on
I can see
problem, intervening.
That's a great skill. It's a great skill.
yes, very
Care about the people who are just having to wait till they're finished. It's not, that's not okay with me.
Yeah.
Protect
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah.
Of course, in the story about my German friend, it was instructive to me as to the difference in quality of how I was listening to what he was saying beforehand, because he did run on times about, I mean, he named all the names of these different characters. I don't know who they are. And the difference between that and when he was simply conveying with loving, tenderness in his words, this healing current to me. And I've heard him do it to others as well since then, sort of opened something for him, and he was willing then to start sharing this.
Do you think it was the difference between head and heart?
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
I mean, because hearts are just so wonderful. I mean, I don't think I've ever been in a heart space where you are turned off in any way, no matter what it is. It's just because it's real and it's just right there. It's just, yes. I mean, you're just open to it. You're just accepting of it. It's a treasure of just to be there. And our headspaces are not quite so much. It's so much of a gift always. Sometimes they are.
Well, one thing that I noticed in my terms of my awareness of these exchanges with this one fellow was that I never knew how much the others in the group were totally locked into these beliefs. They were all beliefs, about, I mean, there's absolutely no evidence that I've ever seen for galactic, within the material realm, galactic influences. Be
Right.
very clear about that. And and they may believe this, and so it was just like being very careful, like the little kid in a tea party, when you're 10 years old and you don't know how to act.
There's something I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think that there's a real lesson to be learned about how people language, especially intangibles, because we all have a sense of the intangible. There's experiential things that happen in our life that tell us that there's something here that's not tangible, and how we talk about that is different in so many ways, but it is very instructive. I like that word, to be able to say, this is the almost the clothes they give to these non-tangible things, the way they make them visible, and how those dynamics show up in their minds. Not that they're true, or it's, that's the truth, but there is a truth there. Yeah. About that could be instructive.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy the thing in order to get the wisdom in it. So there's wisdom in mythology, all the Greek gods and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when you apply all that kind of stuff to how they understand people, it's very instructive. You don't have to believe in the Greek gods to get that instruction. to understand that's how people act with each other. So there's just to hold things lightly, and to just trust that if it's in existence, there's something there that has value, and to be able to kind of sift that out, however it's clothed, whatever the language is. And when it's really shared with other people, I mean, we talk about the fact that what you see becomes real, that the observer creates the reality. So when there are a lot of people engaged in this language, there is a reality that's created of some sort, that has some sense of truth and honesty to it, even if it's not 100%. So just being able to sift out those nuggets is really useful. And I think it gives you such an appreciation for other people's insights, because it shows things that, you know, you might not as an individual have come up with yourself. Yeah.
Is this an example of what you're saying? I create an experience in my body when I acknowledge that I am cosmological and ecological. I'm a blend of what is cosmological and ecological. And that is what I am and who I am. And when I say that, when I acknowledge that, I'm feeling good. And I do that as a practice sometimes. And I'm grateful that I have that awareness that I can do that.
So when I do work with the earth values that I'm sharing, and I want to bring up diversity because it seems to be one of my very favorites. When I feel into how the world is created in its diversity, that all those selves are there, all different, all unique, all autopoetic, self-making, and put myself into that as part of that, it is a spiritual experience. It does bring forth the reality of that dimension as I experience it in my body. And that is what I want to bring forth with this set of principles, because they each have the same vitality, the same resonance with existence. And because it's what everything is doing, I mean, it is how things happen. And when you can experience that, when you have that sense, when you feel that connection with it, it totally changes. I mean, it sounds to me very much like the healing that you went through, that he gave you a different experience of your body, a different feeling sense of how things work, that frames things and that allows things to be the way they are, instead of contorting them the way we do in our minds because of the beliefs we have that don't fit. I mean, that's what the deep dive is. That those little contortion places, we get to prod and probe and explore and release those knots, and begin to pull things together in a way that has a coherence that we didn't have as individuals, because it's now a shared experience and it makes sense to all of us. I mean, that's the gift. That's the gift that comes when we're willing to do that kind of work. Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yes.
That's the forum you have created.
I'm trying to.
Yeah. Your little I have it up on my your little daisy looking flower thing, and the words that you have there
Yeah, Robert hasn't seen that yet.
right. I don't think I can share this screen, but I have
Yeah,
it.
you can. You should be able to. If you can, I can go look for it.
I've got a screen share light on. Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that Ani and I talked about last time or the time before last was the values that I have. She feels are well, the phrase she used was the second form, and that the first form is the more general, overarching system stuff, the systems dynamics. And I've wanted to put systems dynamics into that, but it is a different level. It really is a different level. And so the flower is the larger system dynamics. And then the relationship piece in that flower is like the step into the more deeper, I don't know if deeper is the right word, but a different level of how things work. And there's other levels. I mean, we can certainly do that. Yeah.
I-
So do you want to show, Robert,
Is
what those?
that like what you're talking about is the Mandelbrot sequences? Is it, yeah, where it just
Oh,
keep,
that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
if you go in, you
It's the same but different. Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting allegory. Let me see if I can find it.
I'm printing it out. I'm printing it out so I can show him.
So that's
Oh, okay.
it's kind of old school, Ani, to do it that way. But if that's what we have to do, we are old school.
Quicker, because I missed what you said. Anyway,
Okay. I'm going to do it new school because I think it's faster. So let me share my screen.
see,
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So,
nice,
That's beautiful.
nice.
and I really, I played with the way they work because it's, for me, it starts with identity and then you discover others and then you get information about that and then you begin to see the patterns and the processes that you share and create structures to work together, which become networks, which then allow for the emergence of new things.
That's actually from everything I've been working with lately, that is extremely well put.
Yeah.
And that's the sequence. I'm glad identity maybe should be then straight up so that it truly is seen as a sort of a starting point.
It's a little bigger.
But yeah, that's the sequence that I'm aware of.
I've done a lot with this. When
Yeah,
I got up this morning, I went on Cafe Press to see if I could put it on a T-shirt. And anyway, it didn't work out because there was no shipping part of it. But anyway, I like it so much, and I did the numerology of each word.
Oh,
Relationship.
First, Annie, if you do get to print one up, please print up two. I'd love one.
oh, 3. Yeah.
I'd be happy to, of course, reimburse you for it.
Oh, the shirts, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt there.
Right. But right. I don't have anything else to say, I don't think, about it. Unless you want to know how the numerical value of each word and see how
Yeah. Share that.
relationships is the highest one at 165. Under that, is information, which is 134. Under that is network, which is 125. Then it goes down to patterns, which is 112. And then identity, which is 106. And then process, which is 95. And emergence, which is 75. So ranking them is interesting to look at them.
Yeah, and the way I use numerology, everything gets condensed. So I'm not seeing those kinds of relationships, but it was interesting. So identity would be 7, which is one of the magic numbers. So just interesting to see. 12 seems to be a very common. Several of them are 12.
But it's fun to play with.
Yeah.
And I tried to discern what comes first. And I know you've got identity as first, but from some of the reading I've done, I forget the source or even exactly how it was put, but an organism creates its own identity as it works itself through whatever medium it is working through to be.
Yeah. Well, that's the autopoetic piece, I think.
Right,
That
right.
it's the engagement with others and the information you get in that engagement that you then internalize as an understanding of yourself, as well as an understanding of your relationship with the other.
So, and another way to put that is it starts with self, and the self creates its identity by working through and becoming and interacting with its environment.
Yeah.
And
But
Self
do we
knows
actually
itself.
need self in the pattern, because the self is a given, because you're actually alive and able to to look at the image.
it would be cool to identify the core, the orange
There you go. That's maybe
Yeah.
where it belongs.
is.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
As we speak.
As we speak. All right, now that's going to have to be
A little bit bigger. Yeah.
Nice.
and maybe a different color.
Black will do.
Yellow goes well with red. It kind of,
Oh, red is just such a problematic thing. It is so hard to see.
yeah.
Red and white, you can see it.
they would vibrate with one another. They'd be vibration.
Yeah, they're really hard to see. Red's hard to see on blue or black. It's almost impossible to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, but it just would have been fun.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I would love to have a t-shirt.
Yeah, I agree. I have to figure out. I have my photographs are on Fine Art America, and they have the capacity to put your photograph on all sorts of stuff. And so I've been thinking about how to fudge that system by putting up JPEGs as photographs to do that kind of thing there. Because I think I could do a JPEG of the flower and put it up as a photograph, and then it would be available on bath towels and shower curtains and t-shirts. So maybe I'll try and do that, because there are a couple of other things I would like to do. I used to have access to things, and I have a few t-shirts that I've made of some of the things I've done like this, but I've kind of lost track of that, and I'm not sure where that is.
I want to show you a t-shirt I made.
Well,
I'm
I
not even
think,
sure if it still
I think
exists.
the background color, this sort of green would be a perfect.
Yep. Yeah, I would do the whole square. Yeah,
Oh, the square, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Then you'd want a contrasting color.
Yeah, it would probably be black or white. I don't do black much, so. Oh, there it is. I am nature. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you've done, that's for sure.
Well, it was at your insistence, and it is thanks to Seed and Spark, because they kind of came up with that framework. So we're utilizing it. It's a little bit different. The sequence is different from what they had, but
I think
their
that
sequence
this is the
works.
right sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is how it happens in real life. They had a different intent in their sequence, and it worked for them, but it's not what happens. Yeah.
I tried to, what comes first? And of course, self comes first.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I couldn't, it didn't flow. I mean, I didn't get there. Because it seems to start with information, because that's just information that needs to be processed into patterns and then related.
Well, the information comes from the other, though.
The other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you, as a self, interact with other things and things that are outside of you. So that first, you have to recognize there's something outside of yourself. So that's the first start of identity.
Yeah.
And then that engagement with the other is the beginning of relationship, which gives you the information you need to begin to see how that relationship expands into the patterns of interaction. And then those patterns become the processes by which you interact, and then you create structures to facilitate those patterns to make it easy.
Do networks first after patterns.
Well, networks are bunches of cells. So you have to have the whole self process there before, and many cells, in order to begin to see how the structures will create the networks that you need. So networks are a bigger structure. Because it's a structure between things. The other structures are more internal. And I wonder, because one of the things that I noodle on, and I don't have real answers, is how that decision is made to stay together with certain other cells. Certain cells decide that they need to be together, that there's a benefit and more, a benefit is of being together is greater than being separate. And so they create structures and processes that truly integrate themselves. And in some cases, so they can't be separated ever again. Mm-hmm. And how does that autopoietic process happen between them? There's agreements, and at the larger scale, you can look at ecologies. It's the same thing, where lots of different plants, animals, bacteria, viruses, fungi get together and make agreements. Go, hey, I need you. I want to stay here. This is important enough for me to begin to structurally connect, structural coupling, so that we're going to make this easy to continue this relationship. Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick little story. I watched the birth of a fawn at a zoo. So the fawn was born, and then I stayed and watched for the first 20, 30 minutes of its life. And believe me, the first thing it did was to discover that it was alive. You could just see shaking it off and just sort of breathing. And I mean, the identity part was to realize that it was doing it. It was quite clear that it suddenly started to realize that it had agency within its new world. Relationships, it started wandering then over to its mother, but its mother wasn't necessarily was busy. There were other deer, so to other animals. It was collecting information the entire time. And I'm sure, I mean, I'm just speculating here, but it was picking up on patterns and processes and beginning to structure, its whole environment that it would be
What was
living.
important?
And this helps, this diagram helps to outline, the process that I was watching as it emerged finally into its life cycle. I mean, it was quite extraordinary because there was this sense of absolute, just unveiling, it's incredible to watch. And I think you've got the relationships right, or the sequence, I must say.
The thing about autopolice is, the thing about the statement that you made, Catherine, about cells coalescing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's the way it happens.
Okay.
What I've read very recently is that, cells complexify, and an autopoietic being complexifies. It creates, its cells are self-made. It's, or its cells are self-made. It makes itself.
Right.
It's not like things come together to become something.
Well, I think there's both and. I think well, I'm starting at single cells organisms, which don't complexify, but they do join with other single celled creatures.
Can you document that?
Can I document that? Probably, but I don't know where I read it. It was a long time ago. This is one of the holes I'm finding, because I read stuff everywhere and I go, oh yeah, and that becomes part of me. And where that happened, I can't always go back and bring it forward. But there's so thinking of lichens. So lichens are two very different critters. They have no relationship to each other at all, but they've come together, and we know them as lichens. But the lichen is two things. It's not one thing, even though it looks like one thing to us, but it's really two. So that agreement is pretty solid, and each of those things has more than one cell of itself. So there's the many-celled thing, but there's also the agreement for the entity that it is to be together with another entity that it isn't. The mitochondria in our cells are probably a good example too. It is its own self, and yet it is an integral part of our cell. We cannot take it out. We would not want to take it out. And it probably wouldn't serve either one of us to take it out. The mitochondria would probably lose also. So there was some agreement between the mitochondria and what is our cell, however that first happened.
It functions. It doesn't become anything other than what it is.
No, but it's changed its structure. It's inside our cell. It could be other places. It made that choice. So there's truly some agreement between what is our cell and that entity to be together in a very perpetual way. So they changed the structure. It moved inside to become part of instead of staying outside. That was a choice that they made together at some point.
Nice. I'll dig deeper into that because I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And mitochondria has a different DNA than the cell.
Yes, it has no relation to us at all. So it's by choice that the two agreed to shift the structure and to keep those processes going so that the process can happen easier. They changed that structure to make it happen. I mean, yes, you just get shivers when you think about that. It's just like,
Oh, it's a trip.
yeah. And so why can't we do that? I mean, using our mental faculties and the hearts that we have, I think it's the heart space where we recognize, that the need, that's what relationship is. There's a connection there from your heart that says, this is necessary to me in some kind of way. There's a symbiotic exchange that we have with each other that we need. We need to be together. And then we start creating patterns and structures to make that happen. So we've got Zoom that's allowed us to do that, which we didn't have before. So, I mean, thinking this way is just different. It gives such meaning and richness to what we're doing instead of this mental computations that we're doing. But it's just so fundamental, and it's just natural. It's how it happens. Recognizing that, just seeing those things.
I want to bring in something here.
Well, Ani, I need to,
Okay.
You need to go.
asked on the phone call. I better go. I better leave and take care of that.
Okay.
But, you've just opened up a whole new exciting realm. I think I better get to it.
All right. Bless
See you
you.
next week, if not before, in communications.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
That while I was continuing to delve into autopoiesis, an autopoietic organism creates greater complexity as it grows than the environment which created it, because the environment creates an organism. I mean,
Right, but the environment's composed of other living things. It's not static or not there or dead or anything. It's all life. It's other life is the environment. That's the only environment.
That's right. That's right. That's it. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've separated ourselves from that. And it's really stunted our growth.
It's also fascinating,
Isn't it? Yeah, it's just
book about, a novel or something.
oh, people have done that for centuries. I mean, it's just when you see it, you can look back and you can go, oh, that's what the sages were talking about. That's what I mean, that everybody clothes these realities in their own language at their own time. And you can go back and hear in that language these understandings. But I couldn't hear it exactly the same because I didn't have this place to look from.
Well,
And science has been so helpful for me. It really has, to be able to see it in, I hate to use the word objective, but in that kind of way. And to feel I'm seeing it clearly. We are all one is great, and we all resonate that. But what the hell does it mean? And for me, science has really given legs to that statement. I can experience that in a different way.
Well, one of the things that I'm delving into now to understand better is languaging, because Maturana and others are saying that we create our reality by our language, that what we speak makes things so, that we create reality by what we say. And I'm delving into that.
But it's not the magical, you say it and it's instantly true. That's not how it works. That's the trap. I saw Est get caught in that because they really talked about how we create our reality. Yeah, everybody did. For me, the science of autopoiesis gives that a whole new meaning. It's not that you decide it's going to be a certain way. It's because you think it's a certain way, you act a certain way, and that action is what creates that reality. You function from that belief. That's how language shapes your world. And it's like the difference between, oh my God, I had cancer, I'm going to die, with, oh my God, I had cancer, look what I learned. Same experience, different language. Okay, different reality. And and it's not about not creating cancer. That's not where it is. Because that's those kinds of things come from I believe from the more emotional resonance that we function in the soup that we then figure out with our language. But that soup is really real. So the pain I felt in the way my husband treated me was the soup that cancer came out of. So when I saw that, now I have the way I can reframe that. I can be sensitive to that. I can respond to that instead of react to it. So that was the gift that I got through that cancer experience. But I didn't create the cancer. I didn't decide to have cancer. The fact that I had those feelings made those cells react the way they did. So, I mean, we got to watch that magic and the ego piece that slips in there about how we can make things happen, because it isn't quite like that.
But you did create.
Yeah. But people get, well, I didn't create that. Well, yes, you did, but you didn't. You're not blamed for that. You have to recognize the process by which that happened. That when you interpret something in that way, those kinds of emotions are generated, and that's the result. So yeah, you created it, but you didn't decide to do it. You're not blamed. It's not that way. And we get so hooked in our egos because we think we have the kind of control that we don't have. We just have to learn to work with the process, recognize them, and then you have choice. I don't have to feel that way. People still do that to me. And now I don't have to take it that way. I still have that experience in my life, but I don't have to internalize it that way. I can recognize it as the flag that it is for me, and not accept it into me as me.
Yeah, there's biochemical interactions that do not respond to our intentionality.
Well, they have their own life. All the other cells have their own life. That's why it's so important that your attitude is so important. That's how you bathe all those cells in that life. If you're depressed, what are your cells getting? Depression. Well, how are they going to respond?
Not well.
They can't be joyful and ecstatic. So that's where we do control, but we're not making it. I mean, it's just that whole idea of control is just such a sink, because our egos get hooked in it and we think we can do things that are just unrealistic. And then we get all upset because it's unrealistic and it didn't work out the way we thought it should.
Yeah. Well, human-centric thinking can only take us so far.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's so rich, Catherine. Bless you.
Oh, it's such fun. I mean, it really is when you really think about that. And this is the training I want people to go through. So much of the training is a deep dive kind of thing. It's not so much teaching as it's showing these are the things we're going to go through, but then let's take each one and let's really savor with it. Where do we go? How do you feel? What's your experience of this? And then to be able to come out of that and work with the rest of the world from that place, I hope will bring us back into coherence.
I'm willing and have desire to co-create with you, support you, this, because it's so valuable.
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate what you're doing and what you're wanting to do. And so whatever gifts I have that can support you in this, let me know.
We'll see your place.
What?
See, you'll see your place. I mean, that's the shift, actually. And that's why it's autopoetic, is that when you see what you need to do, you just step into it. I mean, there are things that certainly need to be doing, and I'm doing. You stimulated me to say, this is how I can use help. So I'm going to put that up on the network so people can see it if they want. And if people have that desire, that's great. But this deeper place is really about being together and noticing what needs to happen and just doing it. I mean, because when you see it, that's your signal. That's what you're supposed to do.
I woke up with, I'm making a t-shirt with that flower thing on it.
Yeah.
I was on it all morning.
Yeah. So I'll send you the new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I took a screenshot.
Oh, okay.
Self.
Yeah.
So we'll just see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. And I think that whole thing is just a perfect example of the kinds of synergy that happens when it works. Because you stimulated me to go look at the seed and spark stuff. I did my own interpretation of that. And then you added the self.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's why we're richer together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's more than is in either of us.
Yeah.
Synergy, which is to me the God thing.
Yeah, and everybody sees things differently. So pieces that are left out by one person, another person can add. Yeah.
So it is.
Yes. Until next week.
That is fine.